Have you ever noticed that certain people come into our lives at crucial moments? It's as if they were sent on purpose to deliver a message or help us solve a problem. And have you ever had the sensation when meeting someone of living in a déjà vu, as if you had already met them in an unspecified past? In this video, we will see that people do not come into our lives by chance, but for a specific reason. So make yourself comfortable and stay until the end, because what you will hear will affect you deeply. But first, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share the video. In this way, you will help us produce new valuable content every day for your spiritual growth. One day, while the elderly monk Hotaka was meditating under a blossoming cherry tree, a young man named Hiroshi approached and asked respectfully, "Master, sometimes I meet people and I feel a positive feeling, as if I had already met them, or as if they had a particular affinity with my soul. Other times, however, I feel a negative sensation, as if that person had come to hurt me, to damage me. And all this makes me restless and makes me ask, do people come into our lives by chance?" "Young friend," Hotaka said, his piercing eyes fixed on the boys, "people never enter our lives by accident, and this truth is deeper than we can imagine. In life, we meet different people, and each of them has its place and role in our story. Some come and go, others stay and accompany us through different periods of life." Hotaka slowly stood up and pointed to the blue sky above them. "Look at the birds, young friend. They do not fly by chance. They are carried by the currents of the air, just as we are carried by the invisible forces of existence." Hiroshi contemplated the birds flying across the sky, trying to grasp the depth of the wise master's words. "Imagine your life as a garden," Hotaka added. "Every person who crosses your path is like a seed planted by destiny. Some grow like colorful flowers that last a season, others like mighty trees that endure over the years, but each brings with it the promise of new growth." Hiroshi nodded. He reflected on the various flowers and trees he had seen blooming along the path of his life. "The people who hurt us," Hotaka continued in a tone of pity, "are often our best teachers. They are sharp stones on our path, and despite the pain, they teach us to grow and find our inner strength." The young monk closed his eyes, reliving the challenges that had tempered his soul over time. "And then there are those who appear when we need them most," Hotaka said, pointing to a majestic tree. "Just as the roots of this tree support it on stormy days, these people support us in difficult times." Hiroshi thought of a person who had been his refuge during a very delicate period, a solid anchor in the midst of a storm, a person who, after that period, left his life, even though he would have still wanted her by his side. Finally, Hotaka concluded wisely, "Some remain with us forever. They are like fixed stars in our sky, bright and constant. True friends, family members, our soulmate. With them we share the burden of our days and the joy of our successes." The young monk smiled, feeling enveloped in gratitude for the special people he had met and had by his side. Hotaka looked up at the sky, and a subtle light danced in his eyes. "Recognize and appreciate every person who crosses your path, young Hiroshi. Each is an essential part of your story, and you are a part of theirs. Life is an intricate web of destinies, and each encounter contributes to the fabric of your existence. Know," added the master, "that there are fundamentally three types of individuals: those who support us on the path of our evolution, pushing us to overcome limits and reach new levels of awareness; those who bring a breath of renewal to our inner world. When we cross paths with these individuals, we immediately perceive that the universe is weaving an intricate web. What the plans are hidden in these meetings remains shrouded in mystery, but we can be certain that something in us is destined to undergo an eternal transformation. And then there are the individuals who encourage us to continue. This particular category of travel companions may only accompany us for a brief moment, but their role is crucial. They remind us of the true nature of our path, strengthening our determination to move forward. The Master's words helped the young novice who, in the following years, continued to follow the path illuminated by Hotaka's wisdom. Every encounter, be it a casual passerby or a lasting life partner, became for him a precious piece in the mosaic of his existence. Through the challenges and joys, Hiroshi learned that every person, every experience, brought with it a hidden gift, a precious teaching that contributed to his growth and spiritual fulfillment. As time passed, the novice himself became a senior monk with wise eyes and a grateful heart. In his role as spiritual guide, he shared with the young monks the profound truth taught to him by Hotaka. That life is a constant flow of meaningful encounters, each of which contributes to the unique beauty of our existence. In conclusion, what is the moral of this story? That in life, every encounter, regardless of its duration or intensity, contributes to the richness of our existence. Life is a wonderful journey of discovery, and each person who crosses our path brings with them a unique gift. Sometimes these people die, sometimes they leave, for no apparent reason. Other times they behave badly and force you to make a decision and walk away from them. What we need to understand is that their work is done because one of our needs or desires has been satisfied. Therefore, in a world where people's paths cross and separate like branches of a tree, true wisdom lies in opening your heart at every encounter and learning from the lessons hidden in the folds of destiny. As we move towards our life goals, even difficult challenges and trials always await us, and we can feel helpless. But it is precisely in these moments that the universe sends us people who give us the courage to face these challenges and overcome the obstacles. Their support and encouragement inspires us and gives us the strength to move forward. In the dance of life, Hotaka told the young novice, every encounter is a musical note. Listen carefully to the melody that is revealed through the people who crossed your path. Find beauty in the harmony of human connections. Remember, whether it is a love or a special friendship or, even, an acquaintance who touches our path, an encounter can change us forever. Have you ever thought that itching could have a spiritual meaning? And have you ever wondered if it could be more than just a physical annoyance? What if we told you that itching can hide a deep spiritual meaning that no one has ever told you? A message that your body, mind, and spirit are trying to communicate to you. A secret message that you would do well to listen to so that you can live at peace with yourself and with the world around you. Sounds amazing, right? But in the heart of Japan, in an ancient monastery, a wise monk named Tetsuo has dedicated his life to studying mysteries like this. And in this fascinating Zen story, we will take you on a journey to discover ancient wisdom and a new perspective on itching. You will discover how itching can be a sign of imbalance, an invitation to healing, an opportunity for spiritual growth. And if you stay until the end of the video, you will understand how to discover when itching is a simple physical annoyance and when, on the contrary, it is a spiritual messenger. But before continuing, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to be informed when we publish new content for your spiritual growth. The morning sun filtered through the leaves of the maples of the Zen monastery of Komi-ji, illuminating the wrinkled but serene face of the venerable monk Tetsuo. His disciples, sitting in a semicircle around him, eagerly awaited his words. Tetsuo was known for his enigmatic parables and profound teachings, capable of touching the heart and awakening the mind. That day, however, the topic seemed, only on the surface, unusually banal and earthly, itching. My dear disciples, The monk began with an enigmatic smile. Today, I want to talk to you about a phenomenon that all of us have experienced, but which few have truly understood: itching. A murmur of surprise spread among the disciples. The itching. What could it have to do with spirituality? Master, asked shyly Sakura, a young raven-haired disciple, isn't the itching just a physical annoyance, a symptom of some allergy or irritation? Tetsuo nodded. In many cases, Sakura, you are right, but itching can be much more than just a physical ailment. It can be a messenger, a signal that our body, mind, and spirit send to us to get our attention. A messenger. Taro, an older disciple with a thick white beard, asked curiously, "And what is this messenger telling us?" This, Tetsuo replied, is the question we must ask ourselves every time we feel the itch. What is our body telling us? What is our mind telling us? What is our spirit telling us? Tetsuo scratched his chin thoughtfully, as if searching for the right words. Often, he said, we think of itching as a simple physical discomfort caused by an insect bite, an allergy, or dry skin. And in many cases, this is the truth. But there is another level of meaning, a spiritual meaning, that we often ignore. The disciples listened with growing attention, enraptured by their mentor's words. Itching, Tetsuo continued, can be a sign of imbalance, of disharmony. It can indicate that something is wrong in our life, that there is an area that requires our attention and healing. It can be an invitation to look inside ourselves, to explore our emotions, our thoughts, and our actions. Tetsuo paused, letting his words sink into the minds of his disciples. I remember, he said, a time when a persistent itch tormented me. I couldn't concentrate on meditation, nor find peace in my thoughts. Initially, I thought it was just an allergic reaction to the pollen, but the itching persisted even after taking the medicine. What did you do, Master? Sakura asked with concern and great curiosity. I began to meditate on the itch itself, replied the Master. I observed the sensations, I explored the emotions that came from it. And slowly, I began to understand that the itching was a reflection of a deep anxiety that I had repressed, an anxiety related to an important decision I had to make. And then? Taro asked, what did you do to make this discovery turn into something positive? Once I recognized and addressed that anxiety, the itching went away, Tetsuo replied. I realized that my body was sending me a signal, an invitation to take care of my mind and spirit. Then, as his eyes shone with wisdom and his smile spread peace, he added, the itch, my dears, is a call to action. It is an invitation to take care of ourselves, physically, mentally, and spiritually. It is an invitation to find balance, harmony, and inner peace. The disciples were fascinated. Tetsuo's words had opened their eyes to a new way of seeing itching, a way that went far beyond simple physical discomfort. Thanks to the Master's explanations, they realized that throughout their lives, they had often felt itching without a specific physical reason. But Master, Sakura asked, how can we distinguish between a physical itch and a spiritual one? It's not always easy, Sakura, the monk replied, but there are some clues we can look for. A spiritual itch tends to be persistent, unresponsive to physical treatments, and accompanied by other sensations or emotions, such as anxiety, frustration, or restlessness. Tetsuo continued, furthermore, a spiritual itch can manifest itself in specific areas of the body, each of which has a symbolic meaning. For example, an itchy hand can indicate a desire to take action, to change something in our life. An itchy foot can suggest a need for grounding, for stability, to find a place in the world where we can feel like ourselves. An itchy head can be a sign of mental confusion or thought overload. The disciples listened intently, taking mental notes. The lesson on itching became more and more interesting. Tetsuo, looking his disciples in the eyes, continued his lesson by telling about a new disciple who had once arrived at the monastery. He was a young man tormented by constant itching in his hands. He had consulted numerous doctors, but none had been able to find a cause or cure. Desperate, Hiroshi had decided to seek help in the monastery, hoping to find relief in Tetsuo's wisdom. The monk welcomed Hiroshi warmly and invited him to share his story. And the young man told of his hectic life, his stressful job, and his constant dissatisfaction. He had always looked for happiness externally, accumulating material goods and chasing ephemeral successes, but nothing seemed to quench his internal itch. Tetsuo listened carefully, nodding every now and then. When Hiroshi finished speaking, the monk said to him, "Hiroshi, your itchy hands are not just a physical ailment. It is a sign that your soul is restless, that there is an unexpressed desire burning inside you. Your hands, tools of action and creation, are asking you to express your true nature, to follow your passion." Hiroshi was confused, but "Master," he said, "I don't know what my true passion is. I have always done what others expected of me, what society considered right and appropriate." Tetsuo nodded and replied, "Your true passion, Hiroshi, is like a seed buried deep in the earth. It needs to be nurtured, cared for, and brought to light. Start exploring your interests, experimenting with new activities, following your curiosity. And above all, don't be afraid to make mistakes, to try and try again. Only in this way will you be able to discover what truly makes your soul vibrate." Hiroshi, inspired by Tetsuo's words, began to dedicate time every day to self-discovery. He experimented with painting, writing, music, dancing, cooking, gardening. Every activity opened new doors for him, showed him aspects of himself that he didn't know, and slowly the itchy hands began to subside. One day, while he was working in the monastery garden, he felt a deep and unexpected joy. His hands, immersed in the earth, seemed to dance among the plants, creating harmony and beauty. In that moment, Hiroshi understood that his true passion was nature, taking care of the earth and its creatures. And from that day on, he enthusiastically dedicated himself to gardening, transforming the monastery garden into an oasis of peace and abundance. The itchy hands had completely disappeared, replaced by a feeling of contentment and serenity. He had found his true calling, his purpose in life. The disciples reflected on the story they had just heard, understanding the profound message it contained. The itch, like life itself, was a journey, an opportunity for growth and transformation. From that day, Tetsuo's disciples began to see the itch with different eyes. It was no longer just an annoyance, but an opportunity, an invitation to explore one's inner world and find peace, balance, and healing. And so, itching, from a simple physical symptom, transformed into a powerful tool for spiritual growth, a path towards self-realization. In the following days, the disciples began to share their experiences with the itch. Sakura told how an itchy throat had pushed her to express an opinion she had long kept repressed, freeing her from an internal burden. Taro spoke of an itchy leg that had led him to embark on a pilgrimage, discovering new perspectives and renewed motivation in his spiritual practice. Every itch, every signal from the body, became an opportunity to deepen self-knowledge, to face one's fears and insecurities, to free oneself from old patterns and embrace change. And the Komyoji Monastery became a place of healing and transformation, where itching, from an annoying symptom, was transformed into a precious ally on the spiritual path. And Tetsuo, the wise monk, continued to guide his disciples with love and compassion, teaching them to listen to body language and find inner peace. Have you ever heard of the ancient practice of putting your name in salt water? Imagine immersing your deepest desires in a mystical ritual, letting salt water purify them and transform them into reality. What would it be like to be able to live a life full of serenity and inner peace, free from pain and suffering? And what would it be like to find emotional balance and mental well-being by pushing away the things and people that hurt you? In this then story, thanks to Buddhist wisdom, you will discover that if you put your name in salt water, you can make your wishes come true. If you stick around to the end of this story, you will discover the incredible power of salt water for your life. And you will know how a Buddhist monk named Ariko helped a young disciple rediscover the joy of living through Zen philosophy and this ancient secret ritual. So get ready for an exciting journey through the snow-capped mountains of Japan, where ancient wisdom intertwines with the transformative power of salt water. We assure you that by the end of this touching story, you will have learned how to awaken your inner potential and turn your dreams into reality. But before continuing, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to be informed when we publish new content for your spiritual growth. In an ancient village nestled among the snow-capped mountains of Japan, there lived an old and wise Buddhist monk named Eriko. Known for his profound wisdom and compassion, he attracted disciples from every corner of the country, eager to learn from his teachings. His fame was such that even the emperor himself occasionally went to the temple to receive his advice. One day, a group of disciples gathered around the master. Their faces were marked by tiredness and discouragement. They had fought long and hard, facing all kinds of obstacles and rejections, but life didn't seem to give them what they deserved. This is why they felt tired, trapped in an endless routine, destined for an existence devoid of the well-being and peace they had always desired. Eriko looked at them with her eyes full of kindness and said, "Would you like to learn how to break down those barriers that prevent you from reaching your true potential? What would it be like to be able to overcome the waste we have to deal with every day? And what would it be like to be able to obtain what we need to live peacefully?" The disciples, faced with these questions, nodded, recognizing in Eriko's words the reflection of their own difficulties. "You are not alone," continued the elderly monk. "Many of us have faced these challenges. But there's one thing I want you to know. Every obstacle, every rejection is just part of the path to something bigger and more extraordinary. Today, I'm here to share with you something special, something that can change the course of your life in a way you don't even imagine." Eriko paused, letting her words sink into their hearts, and the disciples smiled, convinced that they would soon find out. What I'm going to tell you about is a powerful force, a philosophy of life that will not only help you achieve your goals, but will also allow you to discover a deeper sense of purpose and fulfillment. It's not just a technique, Eriko clarified. It's a way of thinking, of acting, of being. It is a tool that can unleash your maximum potential and take you beyond what you ever thought possible. Are you ready to take the first step towards a fuller, more exciting and rewarding life? The disciples, intrigued and full of hope, nodded enthusiastically. "Then let us join together on this journey to personal transformation," Eriko exclaimed. "A journey where every challenge becomes an opportunity and every dream becomes an achievable reality. It's time to unleash your inner greatness in all its splendor." And so, Eriko began to guide his disciples along the path of awareness and personal realization. By teaching them the principles of Zen philosophy and powerful techniques such as meditation, gratitude, and manifestation, he would give them the keys to a more fulfilling life. One day, while the disciples were meditating by the lake, Eriko told them a legend that had been handed down for generations. It is said that in the depths of this lake lives an ancient and wise dragon, guardian of a magical pearl that contains the knowledge and wisdom of the universe. Legend has it that only those with a pure heart and a determined soul can find the pearl and gain its powers. The disciples listened to the story in amazement, fascinated by the possibility of gaining such knowledge. The master smiled and said, "The legend of the dragon and the pearl is a symbol of the potential that lies within each of us. Inside us is an inexhaustible source of wisdom and strength, just waiting to be awakened, and we must learn to do it." To help his disciples connect with their inner potential, Eriko taught them a special ritual, the salt water ritual. Salt water represents purification and transformation, Eriko explained. With this ritual, you can free your mind from negative thoughts and channel your energy towards your deepest desires. Now, listen to me carefully because I will explain exactly what you will have to do to put this powerful ritual into practice. The disciples carefully followed Eriko's instructions. Taking a blank sheet of paper, They wrote down their deepest desire clearly and precisely. Then, they folded the sheet and immersed it in a carefully prepared bowl of salted water. As the sheet absorbed the salt water, Eriko guided them in a deep meditation, helping them visualize their wish already fulfilled. He invited them to feel the positive emotions they would feel once they achieved their goal, to perceive the joy and satisfaction that would derive from it. At the end of the meditation, the disciples took the paper out of the bowl and left it to dry. Eriko assured them that the ritual had activated the power of manifestation and that their wish would come true if only they continued to believe in it with faith and perseverance. In the following days and weeks, the disciples put their mentor's teachings into practice, cultivating gratitude and faith in the power of manifestation. However, some of them began to doubt when their wishes did not come true immediately. Eriko reassured them, explaining that the path to personal fulfillment is not always linear. There will be obstacles and trials to face, but it is important to maintain faith and never abandon your dreams. Every trial is an opportunity to grow and strengthen, he said. Learn from your mistakes. Don't be afraid to fail. Failure is not the end, but just a step towards success, and it is only by failing that you can learn how to achieve your desires. The disciples, inspired by the monk's words, continued to persevere, facing challenges with courage and determination. And over time, they began to see the fruits of their efforts. Their wishes, once just distant dreams, began to come true, one after the other. As the disciples achieved their goals, they realized how powerful the potential resided within them. They had learned to turn their thoughts into reality, to overcome limitations and create the life they wanted. Gratitude became a constant feeling in their hearts. They were grateful to Eriko for his teachings, grateful for the experiences they had lived, grateful for life itself. One day, after many years of teachings, Eriko felt that the time had come to leave this world. He gathered his disciples around him and said, "My journey is coming to an end, but my teaching will live on through you. Take with you the wisdom you have learned, share it with the world, and help others find their inner light." With a smile full of peace, Eriko closed her eyes forever. His disciples, moved and saddened, promised to honor his memory by continuing to spread his message of hope, compassion, and personal fulfillment. But what does the story of the monk Eriko and salt water teach us? That all of us, to live a full and satisfying life, must learn to awaken the potential that resides in each of us. This story is a message of hope that reminds us that we can create the life we desire, if only we have the courage to believe and persevere. Like Eriko's disciples, we can learn to transform our thoughts into reality, to overcome limitations, and realize our greatest dreams. All through gratitude, faith in the power of manifestation, commitment, and perseverance. Have you ever wanted to help someone even though they didn't explicitly ask you to? And how did it go? And have you ever wondered if your good intentions could, in fact, have caused a negative ripple effect that you weren't aware of? In the Zen story you are about to hear, we will see that not helping others, unless they ask you, is best for them and for yourself. So stay until the end, because what you discover thanks to Buddhist wisdom could change the way you see the world of human relationships. In essence, you will see how helping those who do not want to be helped can have negative repercussions on your life and theirs, and you will discover how your karma will be affected. But before continuing, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share the video. These small gestures will help us produce new content every day for your spiritual growth. In a quiet Buddhist monastery, surrounded by lush gardens and ancient trees, the old and sagacious monk Norio gathered his disciples to talk about a topic very close to everyone's hearts. His curiosity was palpable and his eyes were fixed on Norio. They all wanted to understand more about the reasons why when they had helped someone, things had not gone as they would have liked. Life is like a great river, and each of us is a small boat navigating this tumultuous course, Norio began in a calm voice. Often we tend to jump into that current, trying to steer other people's boats without waiting to be asked. To make the metaphor he had just used understand, Norio shared a story passed down through the centuries. He spoke of a young monk eager to help a companion in difficulty without being asked. The monk's intervention, although well-intentioned, caused a succession of unexpected events, creating an intricate labyrinth of challenges, even dramatic, for both. You should know, Norio continued, that suffering is a necessary lesson in our spiritual growth. Each individual, like a jewel, is shaped by the pressures of life and the challenges they face. But when we intervene without being called, we rob them of the opportunity to learn, grow, and train. To further clarify his lesson, Norio spoke of two friends, Shoin and Masu, who had shared joys and sorrows since their school days. One day, Shoin heard about the financial problems Masu had found himself in and decided to secretly help him by paying off some debts that his friend couldn't pay. His intentions, said the master, were naturally good. However, Shoin's gesture had unexpected and disastrous consequences. Masu, although grateful to his friend for the unsolicited help, was deprived of the opportunity to resolve the situation in his own way. Additionally, he noted that Shoin had discovered some details about his personal life that he would have preferred to keep confidential. On the one hand, this led Masu to feel an emotional detachment from his friend. On the other hand, Shoin began to feel a growing strain on the friendship. He felt that his act of kindness had not produced the relief he had hoped for, but had instead generated a sense of shame and a change in the dynamic of the friendship itself. In short, unsolicited help had created discord and confusion, demonstrating how, in life, even good deeds can have unexpected consequences. What we often don't understand is that each individual is at the mercy of their own karma, Norio explained, and every action we take, good or bad, comes back to us like an echo. When we help without being asked to do so, we upset the delicate balance of another person's karma and paradoxically harm our own as well. The old monk told other stories, such as that of a young man who, eager to solve the problems of a dear friend without her having asked him, found himself involved in a series of endless difficulties and misadventures. If you enter a labyrinth that is not yours but someone else's without being asked, Norio continued, you could set off a chain reaction of events, creating an intricate web of karmic connections. And your gesture of friendship, no matter how absurd it may seem, could end up doing more harm to the friend in question and to yourself. Imagine wanting to cure someone without asking them if they are willing to give up the things that made them sick. Norio said, suffering is often caused by past actions, and our intervention could alter the natural course of learning that the individual should ultimately experience. Norio then went on to talk about Buddhist teachings, highlighting how even he himself had resisted the temptation to intervene without request. Buddha, the monk explained, had understood the sacredness of the individual learning process and how the karma of each being must be respected. Suffering is a very severe but precious teacher, Norio continued, using other everyday examples to better illustrate the concept. He spoke of the many moments when, seeing a friend or family member in difficulty, empathy pushed him to offer help, and how instead, Buddha taught the wisdom of waiting for the person themselves to ask for help. Suffering is almost always the result of past actions, and karma is the supreme law that governs the universe, Norio said. When we intervene unsolicited, we enter a karmic vortex that can drag us into other people's problems, with unpredictable consequences for both of us. Remember, suffering is like a teacher who guides us along the path of spiritual growth, said Norio. To interfere with this process is to deprive others of the wisdom that only suffering itself can teach. Norio told other stories about daily life at the monastery, showing how the monks applied these teachings in daily practice. Dozens of monks I have trained, he added, became wiser and more self-confident men precisely because I avoided intervening directly in their problems. By resisting the temptation to intervene to solve certain problems, I allowed them to face their own challenges and learn the lessons that karma had in store for them. Every action we take is like throwing a stone into a pond, Norio said, using a metaphor to clarify the concept. The ripples spread and return to us. When we help without asking, we not only influence the karma of others, but we create ripples that can impact our own lives. In conclusion, what do we understand from this story, and how can you help us? The moral we can draw from this story is a reminder of the wisdom of discerning when to reach out and when to wait. Karma, like an unbroken river, carries our actions with it, and the way we offer our help can alter the very structure of destiny. Before reaching out to help someone, we must reflect on what they really need, Norio admonished. Not everyone seeks advice. Sometimes they just need a listening ear and an understanding heart. Therefore, let us always remember to respect the sacredness of the individual path of each human being. Help should never be an impulsive act, but rather a conscious gesture, respectful of free will, and the path of personal and spiritual growth of others and ourselves. Life is an intricate web of lessons and opportunities for growth. When we offer our help without being called, we can deprive others of the precious opportunity to learn about themselves. Wisdom lies in recognizing that sometimes the best lesson is the one learned through one's own effort and experience. Therefore, let our help be a beacon of light, offered when requested with awareness and respect, rather than a chain of unexpected events. Today, thanks to this Zen story, we will see why staying close to your children in old age is a mistake. Have you ever dreamed of a peaceful old age, surrounded by the affection of your children and grandchildren? Have you ever thought that living under the same roof, sharing every moment with your family, was the key to a happy and fulfilling life? What if we told you that this idyllic image could hide unexpected pitfalls? What if closeness, instead of strengthening family bonds, could lead to tension, conflict, and the loss of your precious independence? Dear friends, today we want to share with you a story that challenges our deepest beliefs about old age and family. A story that invites us to reflect on the true meaning of filial love and the importance of preserving our autonomy and dignity, even when the years pass and our strength diminishes. And if you stay until the end of the video, you will discover how a courageous woman named Lee defied social conventions and found her way to an authentic and fulfilling old age, far from the golden chains of forced cohabitation. But before continuing, if you are not one of us yet, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to stay updated when we publish new content for your spiritual growth. The sun, a fiery sphere slowly sinking into the ocean, painted the sky with strokes of orange, pink, and purple, creating a picture of heartbreaking beauty. The Zen temple, perched on the top of a hill, was wrapped in an aura of peace and serenity, a refuge from the chaos of the world. A group of pilgrims, their faces marked by time and life's experiences, had gathered around the venerable monk Hiroto. Their eyes, full of expectation, were fixed on the sage, eager to hear his words. Hiroto, his eyes transmitting an unprecedented sense of inner peace, began to speak in a calm and deep voice. Dear friends, today I want to share with you a reflection on a topic that touches the hearts of many elderly parents: the choice of whether or not to live with their children in old age. Our society often teaches us that closeness to family is the only way to a peaceful old age, but the truth, as often happens, is more complex and nuanced. The monk paused, letting his words settle in the air like cherry petals carried by the wind. I know a woman named Lee, who after the death of her beloved husband chose to go and live with her son Carlos and his family. Lee, a strong and loving woman, had dedicated her life to her family, pouring into them all her affection and dedication. When her husband fell ill, Lee stayed by his side day and night, never complaining, taking care of him with infinite tenderness. She read to him, massaged his tired hands, and spoke to him sweetly, trying to bring a ray of sunshine into his dark days. Hiroto's eyes clouded with sadness as he continued his story. After her husband's death, Lee felt lost and alone. The house, once full of life and love, now seemed empty and silent. Every corner reminded her of her loss. Every object seemed to whisper the name of her beloved. The silence was deafening, broken only by the ticking of the clock and the rustling of leaves in the wind. Carlos, seeing his mother's sadness, proposed that she come and live with him and his family. Lee, eager to fill the void in her life and be close to her grandchildren, accepted with gratitude. At first, everything seemed to be going well. Lee was happy to be useful, to help with the housework, to prepare delicious meals for the family, and to spend time with her beloved grandchildren. The house was full of laughter and life again. The old woman felt part of something again, important again. But as time went by, the initial enthusiasm gave way to a growing feeling of unease. Hiroto paused for a moment, gathering his thoughts. You see, dear friends, living with one's children in old age may seem like a natural choice, dictated by love and the desire for closeness. But often, this choice can lead to unexpected and painful consequences. Allow me to illustrate 7 reasons why this cohabitation can turn out to be a mistake. He raised a finger, beginning his list. The first thing you need to think about is the loss of independence. What initially seems like a gesture of love and mutual support can turn into a slow erosion of autonomy. Lee, accustomed to managing her own home and making her own decisions, found herself having to follow the rules and schedules of another family. Her habits, her rhythms, her little daily pleasures, everything was called into question. Her voice, once authoritative and respected, was lost in the chorus of demands and requests from her children and grandchildren. Gradually, Lee felt like a guest in her own life, a silent shadow that wandered around the house, trying not to disturb. One day, as she was about to prepare her favorite afternoon tea, she heard Marina, Carlos' wife, say, "Mom, the children prefer orange juice. Could you make it for them?" Lee, with a forced smile, put down her cup and headed for the refrigerator. As the pilgrims pondered the monk's words, Hiroto went on to speak of the erosion of identity. Lee, who had always been an active and independent woman, found herself defined primarily by her role as grandmother and domestic help. Her interests, her passions, her dreams all seemed to vanish into thin air. She loved reading, painting, and taking long walks in the park. But now her time was taken up with preparing meals, shopping, and looking after her grandchildren. Her identity, built over a lifetime, was crumbling, replaced by a role that no longer represented her. Lee felt like a bare tree, deprived of its leaves and fruit, unable to recognize herself in the mirror. And so, Hiroto continued, the initial gratitude and joy of being close to her family gave way to a growing sense of frustration and resentment. Lee felt exploited, misunderstood, invisible. Her efforts, her sacrifices, her unconditional love seemed taken for granted. One evening, while the family was gathered at the table, Lee tried to tell a funny anecdote from her youth, but was interrupted by Carlos, who was discussing work. Her voice, suffocated by the fear of creating conflict, turned into a lump in her throat, into a heavy and painful silence. The lack of privacy and personal space is another important aspect that Hiroto spoke about. Lee found herself sharing every space, every moment, every thought with her son's family. Her privacy, once sacred and inviolable, had been violated. She no longer had a corner of her own, a place where she could retreat to read a book, listen to music, or simply be in silence. Her home, once a sanctuary of peace and quiet, had become a crowded, noisy place where she could not find a moment of solitude. Even her bedroom was no longer a private haven, with her grandchildren coming and going as they pleased, leaving toys and clothes strewn across the floor. Differences in values, habits, and lifestyles can create tensions and misunderstandings, continued the monk, introducing another fundamental point for which living with children is not always the right choice. Lee, who grew up in a different era, often clashed with the ideas and behaviors of her children and grandchildren. Her traditions, her values, her way of seeing the world seemed outdated and irrelevant. One day, Lee suggested that her grandchildren play outside instead of watching TV, but they looked at her smugly and continued watching their favorite show. Lee felt like an outsider in her own family, a relic of the past, unable to adapt to the present. Another fundamental aspect to take into consideration is that linked to emotional dependence. Forced cohabitation can create a dangerous emotional dependence. Lee, deprived of her independence and her social network, found herself completely dependent on her children for all her needs, both practical and emotional. She was afraid to go out alone, to take the bus, to go grocery shopping. Her self-esteem, already undermined by the loss of her husband, took a further hit. Over time, she began to feel like a child, unable to take care of herself, a burden to her family. Furthermore, the negative impact on the parent-child relationship was another problem to address. Forced cohabitation, in fact, can put a strain on love and mutual respect, transforming a precious bond into a source of stress and conflict. Lee and Carlos, once united by a deep love, began to see only flaws and shortcomings in each other. Carlos complained that his mother did not contribute enough to the household expenses, while Lee felt hurt by his words. Small misunderstandings turned into arguments, kind words into reproaches. Their relationship, once a lifeline, had become a burden that dragged them down. Hiroto paused, letting the weight of his words settle on the hearts of the pilgrims. Lee's story shows us how living together as an elderly parent with an adult child can become a minefield of conflicting emotions, where love mixes with resentment, gratitude with frustration, and closeness with distance. Choosing to live together, made with the best intentions, can lead to a downward spiral of misunderstanding and suffering. The wise old monk looked at the pilgrims, their thoughtful faces illuminated by the flickering light of the lanterns. Dear friends, old age should not be a time of renunciation and sacrifice. It is a precious time, an opportunity to reap the fruits of a lifetime of experiences and to live in harmony with one's essence. Closeness to one's children is important, but it should not be at the expense of our happiness and freedom. True happiness in old age lies in the balance between love for family and love for oneself. Lee courageously decided to leave her son's house and return to her hometown. There, she rediscovered the joy of living at her own pace. She resumed her morning walks in the park, signed up for a painting class, and began attending a reading group. Her life filled with color and new friendships. Her relationship with Carlos and his family changed, now based on mutual respect and authentic connection. Visits from Carlos and his grandchildren have become occasions of joy and sharing, no longer a source of stress and obligations. Hiroto smiled at all the pilgrims present, his eyes full of compassion. Dear friends, Lee's story teaches us that old age is not a decline, but a new beginning. It is the time to take care of yourself, to cultivate your passions, and to live in harmony with your essence. Closeness to your children is important, but it must not be at the expense of our happiness and our freedom. True happiness in old age lies in the balance between love for family and love for yourself. Silence fell over the group, broken only by the chirping of the crickets and the rustling of the wind through the leaves of the trees. The pilgrims, touched by Hiroto's words, reflected on their lives and the choices they had made or would have to make over the years. Remember, Hiroto continued, that old age is a gift, a time to celebrate the life we have lived and to embrace the wisdom we have acquired. Do not let the expectations of others rob you of your freedom and happiness. Live your old age with dignity, autonomy, and joy, surrounded by the love of your family, but also with the freedom to be yourself. The sun had set, giving way to a starry sky. The pilgrims, enlightened by Hiroto's wisdom, dispersed into the night, taking with them the precious lesson they had learned. Lee's story, a tale of courage and rediscovery, had touched them deeply, reminding them of the importance of living old age with dignity, autonomy, and joy. Hiroto, left alone, looked up at the starry sky. He knew that his words had planted a seed in the hearts of the pilgrims, a seed that, in time, would sprout into a new awareness. Old age, like an autumn garden, can still bloom with vibrant colors if only one had the courage to embrace one's freedom and live in harmony with one's true nature.